Let's discuss this and other developments now with our senior political analyst, Marwan Bishara, who joins us on the News Hour. Let's start, Marwan, with the U.S. actions on the Houthis. 4 rounds of strikes on the Houthis, relisting them as a terrorist organization. What do you make of these U.S. moves and their intended effect?
Well, let's start with the designation. I think it is as dangerous as it's nonsensical. The whole point that America designates itself as the guardian that underlines who is and who isn't a terrorist and defines what is global terrorism is kind of a joke for many people in the Middle East, because it's the same country that deploys its armadas and aircraft carriers and military bases throughout the Middle East and then somehow acts in self-defense against terrorists. And it is 1 year after another, 1 decade another, just keeps repeating itself. Be that as it may, it designated the Houthis terrorists, and now this is going to put the peace process between Yemen and Saudi Arabia in jeopardy. It's in fact going to create more retaliation on the part of the Houthis, leaving them with less incentives to behave, as it were, but will probably escalate both the threats to the navigation in the Red Sea as well as to the security of the Arabian Peninsula.
Right. The Houthis, of course, have said that they're doing these actions in response to Israel's attack on the Gaza Strip, right? And you know, looking at the situation in Gaza today and what's happening also in the West Bank, where we're seeing increased Israeli raids and arrests, what does it suggest to you as far as where Israel wants to take this conflict?
Let's underline what connects all of these, right? Again, as we were just saying earlier about America attacks Yemen 4 times and it calls it self-defense. It's defending the navigation, its own ships, right? Israel attacks the Palestinians in Gaza. It attacks them in the West Bank. It calls it self-defense. And there is countless moronic officials and others in the West and elsewhere in the world that are more than happy to parrot some very basic inaccuracies and falsehoods, such as Israel has the right to defend itself. The Palestinians use human shield, use Gaza as a human shield, and so on and so forth. And just people keep repeating these things, allowing Israel and the United States to engage in war against the Yemenis and the Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank. So it's the same the United States that backed a war against Yemen that led to the death of 200,000 or 300,000 Yemenis, is now backing another war in Palestine that's already leading to probably 100,000 casualties, tens of thousands of dead people. So these American-backed wars against Yemen and against Palestine are connected.
Yeah. Connected.
And Yemenis and Palestinians have a right to, you know, voice their solidarity with one another.
You mentioned Israel and America, and I wanted to ask you a bit more about that relationship, specifically about the Biden-Netanyahu relationship, because there have been some reports in U.S. media suggesting that there's growing frustration between the Biden administration and the Netanyahu government, with Netanyahu reportedly rejecting this U.S. plan to get Israel and Arab leaders to agree on a path forward for Gaza after the war. Now, the report suggests that the U.S. is looking past Netanyahu now at a post-Netanyahu Israel. You know, what does that say to you about where America is right now? Is there real frustration with the Netanyahu government, or is this just lip service?
The big question is that, are we in the process of repeating what happened 30 years ago, when Bush father sat in Washington and told the Shamir government at the time, Netanyahu's former boss, either you keep up with our program or we're going to look beyond you. America looked beyond Shamir and got Rabin in 1992. I think we're having similar...
Is that where we're at now, you think?
We're having similar, because the last 3 months, Biden was very loyal to Netanyahu and loyal to their joint operation against Hamas, defeating Hamas. That objective was the culmination of that famous or infamous hug, remember, back in October 17, between Biden and Netanyahu. Basically, Biden was telling the Israeli prime minister, I got your back, but once we're done with this, you're going to have to listen. right? Netanyahu got the arms, got the money, but he wouldn't take the advice. The advice is actually good for Israel. It's not good for Netanyahu. Netanyahu wants to prolong the war and wants to occupy and then wants to annex the West Bank. Biden's ideas are not conducive to his political future.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Marwan. Always good to hear your thoughts. Marwan Bishara is our senior political analyst.